Did you ever meet people that you knew immediately you wanted to be friends with? That's exactly what happened with today's guest. Let me introduce Dan Barnard. Dan is not only the podcast host of a really cool podcast called Capital Fit. He is a self-described and proclaimed health nut, a C-suite startup advisor, and he helps owners navigate exits. He has terrific mindset. He supports local. He's involved with legacy planning. He's an investor. He's a father of three. He's from the great state of Iowa. And probably one of the coolest things also, you are existing to help people come up with businesses that matter. Welcome to the podcast, Dan Barnard. Welcome to Most People Don't, But You Do.
Bart, that was the nicest introduction anybody has ever given. And I appreciate being on the show. In fact, I have to be full disclosure here. I was a little nervous. I mean, I read your background here and all your experience with Ritz-Carlton, the iconic Ritz-Carlton. And I go, oh my gosh, how am I on Bart's podcast? And my girlfriend's like, you know what, Dan, you're ready to roll. You're ready to rock. You're there. You got to think you're there, right? Isn't that part of life? You got to just know you're there. You can't have doubts. And so I appreciate you inviting me onto the show. And I appreciate our good friend, David Belzer and Colleen Malloy for connecting us.
Yes, no, for sure. And the thing that I like about the show, Dan, is that not everyone might have access to you. They might not be in Arizona. They might not be a high net worth person. They might not be involved with med tech or finances. But here's an opportunity for people to meet someone like you. So I am equally honored and blessed. So Dan, thank you. We're going to start off with some high level related questions. When we first met and we spoke last week, I mean, the conversation, I think we're slated for like 15 minutes and it went on. And I was like, this is a gentleman I need to have on the show. The name of the podcast, Most People Don't. The name of our book, Most People Don't. The name of the company, Most People Don't. You have done some really incredible things. So I'm going to ask you, from your perspective, Dan Barnard, what do you think you do that most people don't do?
I care. I really do care. I think a lot of people don't care. I think the apathy, and that goes back to my mother. My mother cared. My father cared. They really cared. They were people who cared how people felt when they were in their presence. They were both entertainers. My dad was a pianist. My mother was a big band jazz singer. We're talking the greatest generation, right? And I think I imbue those qualities of just making people feel great and caring. I'm caring when people walk in. How do they feel? I don't know where it came from. I'm empathic. They say empathy, whatever. But in which I go back to your bio, and you hired empathic, not people with empathy. That was part of your hiring process. So I think it starts with people that are empathic. I think care, and they care to make a difference, and that's me.
Yeah, and were you always like that? Did you notice, even like as a young child, did you notice that you were empathetic and you cared?
Yeah, and it goes back to a little dysfunctional family here and some trauma and me wanting to make everybody feel good, wanting everybody to feel comfortable and relaxed and happy, right? And because it was a lot of tension and stress. My dad had a successful career in real estate, and that all came to an end when he had a massive stroke at 57, and which was really tough for the whole family. But and rather than running from it, I just embraced it, and I became sort of the glue to the family. I became the glue to the neighborhood. I've been described as the mayor in the block party king back in the day, and I still now people call me Hector the Connector. So it's I really want people to connect, and I want them to have success, and where did it come from? I don't know. It makes me happy to see people succeed. I get more gratitude out of that. I get more gratitude out of that.
Mhm.
The gratitude. I'm moving into a new remodeled home here, and we're just moving out of this place. But I came across this in my curio cabinet today. It was my last
Yeah.
thing that was in the corner. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
okay.
gosh. Meant to be, right? Meant to be. And I either have some in my drawer or some in my container back here, and I'll show you. Our
Yeah,
listeners that have been following along for a while, right? They know the element of giving gratitude stones and why I do it. And
yeah,
whenever I see you, hopefully in a couple of weeks here, I'll be able to shake your hand and give you one live and in person. But right
yes.
here we go, right?
Oh,
Tiger eye for power and protection.
yeah,
And we just try to do something a little different. Like, yes, I will often just hand them out, but sometimes people want to know exactly, well, what does this help me with, right? So there's a little description about
yes.
pure courage and confidence
Wow,
and connection. So anyway, just meant to be with regard to gratitude. All right, so
for
Dan,
sure.
right, that you care, amazing. Growing up, that seemed to be your lane. You held things together. May I ask, when your father had the stroke, did he survive the incident?
He was 57. I was 14. I was just entering my freshman year in high school, and that hit the whole family like a ton of bricks. Right, our finances were dramatically impacted. Mother and my dad's relationship with mom, because he was an invalid for many for years. He got better over time. I became his physical therapist. I built the handrail down the stairs so we can get downstairs. And there was a workout gym that I installed, like weights and pulleys. I did that. I built a little wooden box. Well, it was like 12 inches by 12 inches. I put carpet on it. I built these two handles. I got it bolted in beautifully. It was all woodwork. So I'm channeling my great grandfather, Heman Allen Barnard, who was a furniture maker and a plow handle maker for John Deere tractors in the 1850s and 60s, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I was, I just embraced it. And I just kept thinking, Dad, your neural pathways will heal themselves. It'll happen, Dad. Just keep going. And every year his hand got a little bit better. He could play more chords. He could hold, cards, because he loved to play cards. He loved to play golf, billiards with me. That all ended. We had just won the father-son golf tournament at our country club, the Rock Island Arsenal Country Club in Rock Island, Illinois. That summer, I was 14. I beat out, 18-year-old high school, standout players at their respective high schools. And so that was like the pinnacle of father-son. And, then he had the stroke. It impacted me in a massive way, but it, with trauma and dramatic things that happen in your life, you can go two ways, right? You can face that challenge on, or you can let it impact you and go the opposite direction. I chose to embrace it, and I think it was the foundation of who I am today, and it brought out of me this desire to just mentally, like, telepathy. I know you can heal. I know you can heal. So I'm just this weird healer person, and have always wanted that. And that's not the easiest role to play in life, because you care too much and you feel people's pain too much. But I'm learning to
And
embrace it.
thank goodness, Dan. And thank you for being a great son to your dad. Not an easy thing to do. Did you have siblings?
Yes, I had two younger sisters, and
Okay.
had to be strong for them. And my
Yep.
older brother was already out of the house at that time. He was in his mid-20s and had his life there. So it
Yeah.
was
So
really
you stepped up. You stepped up and you created an environment that was healing for your father. Um, I, I- and I'm sensitive to ask this. Did he begin to feel better?
He, I guess it's all relative, right? His personality changed. He, his right brain, left side, right brain was basically flooded. His prefrontal cortex, all
Yes.
that. His personality changed. His anger, he became triggered. And they didn't have blood thinners back in the day. They just said, let it play out. It was a bleed out, and there's nothing we can do. Paul, just come back. So he changed. Did he get better? Yeah, he got better. He got better, and he became sort of like the guy that walked everywhere. He couldn't drive for a few years. After that, he drove, but then he couldn't drive. And he was a veteran. He flew P-38s in World War II, so he was a hero as well. And I respected him.
How much longer then did he live? Did he pass?
He lasted for 16 years. He 17 years. His stroke was 1980, and he died in 1997. So
yeah, well, I'm sorry, of course, for anyone that loses their father. I lost mine probably about 10 years ago or so, and I was not close distance-wise, 4 hours away. He was in Pittsburgh. I'm still in the DC area. And, to this day, when you think about regrets, I did not do enough to help. And I know that. So when I hear your story, it reminds me that if we know it's not too late. My mother's 90. Like, it's not too late. My mother lives by herself. We were up there a couple weekends ago. My son and I drove up. But thank you, because that's not easy to do. And to realize that your dad took care of you as a kid, and you probably had to resort back to many of the basics of almost like caring for a child, I'm sure. But thank you, right, Dan? Thank you for being that type of a son and for caring. And you even shared when we had a call last week or the week before that you are the person that does care. You are the person that will take care of an ex-girlfriend that was diagnosed with cancer. You are the person that will adopt the puppies that need a home, or you do things like that. I think that's unusual, Dan, that business people can be kind and successful. When I look at your background without knowing you, and I'm looking at your background, and I'll pull it up for my reference. The owner of, let me just pull it up. I have almost it all memorized. Hold on. Is it Barnard Wealth Management? What's the official name? Don't tell me. Yes.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, DBA Capital Fit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Sir.
Okay. Yeah. Barnard Wealth Management. Got it. Financial architects. You were an associate. Financial advisor before that. Financial advisor before that. Like, you are a smart gentleman. And what else did I see here? Hold on. Prudential, JMB Realty Group. And were you top of your class as well, or something amazing like that, Dan?
In my finance class at Iowa State University, yeah, I was.
Yeah. Okay. All of those things before I met you, I'm looking at this and grateful that Dave and Colleen introduced me to you. I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, here's going to be a guy that is extremely sophisticated, only focused on business. I'm not going to feel comfortable talking about feelings and empathy and humanity and being kind and gracious. I'm not going to be comfortable because this guy is probably going to be just so uber wealthy that he can't associate with a normal human being, right? That was my thought. And then to find people like you that are kind and generous and caring, I think it is highly unusual. I know that you're surrounding yourself, just like everyone that Dave and Colleen introduces me to, surrounding yourself with those types of people. But I'm curious, as you were growing up in your professional career, did you run into people that were self-centered, egotistical, only concerned with profitability and making more money and buying more toys?
Oh, yes.
How did you handle that? Because that's
Still
not
do.
you.
Well, you're right. I was surrounded by very successful financial advisors, top 5, top 2, top 1%, whether it's life insurance, core to the table, top of the table. The Eagles Award, I wanted for so many years with my former firm out of Woodland Hills, California. It was a firm of about 300 independent financial advisors. And the year I got my Eagle Award was a proud year, because it wasn't like, okay, you hit here. It was like you had to be in the top 10%. And those numbers were always rising every year. But I didn't get fulfillment out of that. What I got fulfillment out of was the excitement for clients when they retired, the excitement when their kids, they saved enough to go to college, and the empowerment that financial wealth gives you, the responsibility of having that on my shoulders for 100 families over 26 years was a lot. But I saw that. I got, of course, running around, and you're always wanting more. And so 8 years ago, I did the proverbial burning of the boats. I left that industry and felt there was another calling to help out startups. I always wanted to build something from my own. I built up a financial wealth practice, a clientele, 3 partners. I sold the clientele, the client list, the assets under management to a colleague of mine, my assistant of 16 years, who was my Jiminy Cricket. He was my right arm, my left arm. He handled everything beautifully. Mike Ward, thank you, Mike, for helping all those years, and just a great human. So I go back to you and your bio, and you empowered people. The culture at Ritz-Carlton was about empowering. You gave them $2,000 to solve problems. I did not tell Mike how to solve a problem. And I look back at my management style and how it was really strangely aligned with you. You crushed it at the highest levels of one of the most iconic brands in the country, out in the world. I was just trying to, please 100 clients in 26 states and navigate the ever-changing, river of wealth, financial markets, and crashes, and stay the course. Right, you're going to come through a storm. So teaching clients to stay the course was super important. But I felt another calling, and now I am, I'm in the middle of several medical technology companies that I am been helped. I've been hired by and advising to get their products to the market to make a big difference, like a non-invasive continuous glucose monitor wearable. I say those words to people and they go, "Wow, really?" Yes, we have the patent for it. We're coming out with an alpha and then a beta in 2027. Amazing. And I'm like, and it's like, to stay the course on that and define a technology that's nascent, that is novel, and okay, it works in the lab. Can it work in real life? And now we've made that transition from lab to the real human experience to measure your levels of glucose using AI. You need AI. You need a neural network. I've learned all these words, but it's very empowering when you go from your identity. So this is kind of my book that I'm figuring out in my head, is going from your identity, which was wealth and the top people in my field, guys and gals, listening to managers managing billions of dollars, to the top, always looking up to the top 5 guys and gals every year and trying to emulate their best practices, right? So always pushing for more, but it was sort of a fleeting of success. Okay, I see my name up on the list, I get my Eagle Award, I get a bonus, whatever, but I really felt and was stirred to do something different and burn the boats and completely lose my identity as a wealth advisor. 100 friends I had to leave behind because I signed a non-compete, and can't contact them in on paper, but a handful are still very good friends. But it was that was transformation. That was just rewiring my whole brain to go, okay, which is not comfortable.
No, right. Yeah, you embraced it. You were courageous and you embraced the uncomfortable. I always like to step back and just recap what I'm learning, and then hopefully our listeners are learning as well. We know that there is care. Care for others is critically important. And my takeaway is that it is never too late to care for another human being. It doesn't matter what the relationship is. It doesn't matter how close or how not close. It doesn't matter what your positioning is in the sibling rivalry. It doesn't matter if you're eldest or youngest, or if it's a cousin or a distant cousin or even a stranger, that you can still help. There's a situation going on right now with my wife is helping a cousin. and he is dealing with a frontal lobe. I can't remember the official term, but he's dealing with dementia from the frontal lobe perspective. And, we're doing research. We're listening to podcasts when we're driving in the car to be able to learn what we can do to help. And she's, making plans to go visit, several times a week. And just, it's really incredible. So that's my first takeaway. And thank you again for being caring. The second one you mentioned was empowering. So empowering the people that you work with. But then it also sounded like empowering your 100 families, your 100 clients, and you sought gratitude from doing good things for them and seeing them be excited about certain things. Mm-hmm. And then we get to the point now of after 26 years, and you had referenced carrying, I think you actually said carrying those families with you. That's a lot of pressure, especially when you care deeply. That's a lot of pressure. And then saying, you know what, I have a calling. I want to do something different. And as you referenced identity, I can relate to that. You and I have a lot of things similarly and eerily in common. Whenever I left Ritz-Carlton, I left my business card. And I was no longer Bart Berkey with Ritz-Carlton. I was just Bart Berkey. And it made me come up with a story that I shared a while ago. And it was friends longer than colleagues. So maybe I worked with you for 16 years. We can always be friends. And then I try to come up with a similar statement, friends longer than clients. And I found that some people were amazing at that they would pick up the phone call, when I was looking to do more keynote messaging or podcast hosting or facilitating. There were a lot of people that picked it up because of me. And then there was a very small amount, and I guess they weren't true friends anyway, that if I did not have that title or that company on my business card, it was not as easy for them to want to pick up and call me back. And I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit more about what prompted you to seek this new identity? Did something happen after 26 years that the pressure was too immense? Or really was it this calling of, I find joy in this, I want to do more of this? Can you share? That was a long-winded recap.
Yes.
Dan,
well, to be perfectly frank and full disclosure, yes, I had a intestinal issue. They gave it the name of Barrett's esophagus, which is a pre-esophageal C word.
Okay.
It was too much stress, right? My son was going through some really, really rough times. He was in his late teens. He was with me. That was creating a lot of, challenges daily. And I didn't really know how to navigate that. I didn't have the tools to navigate that. I tried my best. And then I had an opportunity to get involved in a real estate project that had to do with a sustainable farming, sustainable vineyard, veteran administration, or veterans administration, a veterans project to house them, to give them, to create a community, to also create a community of like-minded, folks that I'm not saying live on the land, but so I jumped into that as well with both feet, and I felt like that was my calling. That was a private equity deal. It got funded. The vineyard was built. It's still evolving down there, and it has a whole new face to it. So but I was part of that the genesis of that. It was very exciting to build that, to find the players. And it seemed like as time went on, that, the right people connected with me in that, but the wrong people also connected with me. So I learned a lot of lessons in that regard. When you build something and it's really big, it's got a big potential that attracts certain people, and they can kind of come in and somewhat dominate if you're not prepared, for that kind of personality. You talked about personalities. But I guess what was the question? The question was, that was a pivot for my health,
yes,
for my mental, And I felt there was a change. I just, I looked around every year. I went to the top meetings and went to the trips and all that. I'm like, okay, is there more to this? And I had a longing to build something again, I guess. So I
Like
had
your
a
great
successful,
grandfather, right?
yes,
Yeah.
channel, yeah, Heman for sure. Yep, I'm still channeling him. So I feel like at 59, I'm 59. I've never felt better. I've never met more interesting, unique, successful, caring people like yourself than I have in the last several years, because I'm open to that. And I think when you change your mindset and you change your mindset, you attract a whole new set of people. And I'm getting better and better. And the word gratitude is so important. And so I think at the foundational level, every day when you wake up and you feel that, you're going to resonate that. And then the universe will match that resonation.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. So Dan, understanding, had dealt with an illness that was related to probably stress, having to spend additional time helping your son feel better with different things. Yeah, that's a lot on you. And our listeners know this, but right before the pandemic, Dan, and there's a longer story to it. I'll share it when I see you, but I had a massive heart attack right before the pandemic started. And my first reaction was, oh my gosh, I had a heart attack. I'm fine. But my first reaction was, oh, I get to rest for a little bit and I don't have to think about work. I just get to be home with my two dogs and my wife and and my kids. Like that was my first thought. In, not afraid of dying. Yes, afraid of dying, afraid of not being here. But my first thought was, okay, I get to rest finally and not to worry. Right. So I appreciate what you're saying so much. And thank goodness bad things happened. And now we're using them for good things. So, Dan, as a result of that, and you starting Capital Fit and the self-proclaimed health nut and all of these other things that you are doing, you are now meeting people. And would you mind sharing this story? And you briefly touched upon it, that you were at a networking event and it was this mother that had this one situation. Would you mind sharing that story again? Because I think it shows the power of being open, caring, listening, looking, allowing the universe to bring into your life people at certain times. And now you are helping her do something really special. Would you mind sharing?
Oh, gosh. So let me think that story here, Bart, because it happens almost on a daily basis.
Sorry. Yes, it was a mother who had given birth and the baby came out not breathing and came up with a technical technology that you're like, you're having a conversation and you're going to help this mom do something. I didn't understand all the medical aspects. So would you mind sharing the essence of that at least?
Sure. Again, when you're in that mindset and I'm in the medical device startup world. Mm-hmm. I meet this gal at a networking event. It was for a local artist, and it was featuring her art. Layla Parnian, Parnian. Layla does gigantic murals. She's a powerful gal, really cool. It was her best friend. Sort of the end of the evening, we're sitting down in her parents' high-end furniture store in this, $30,000 couch. I'm like, okay, I probably shouldn't be sitting here, but we are. We strike up with the conversation, and she said, "What are you doing?" Well, medical device, non-invasive glucose monitor. Oh, wow, are you serious? Wow. Well, yeah. Well, what do you do? Well, I've put several $1 million into a device that monitors the baby when mother is pregnant, because I almost lost my baby because of the lack of data that was being transmitted while I was giving birth, and not knowing that for a half an hour, the umbilical cord wrapped around her son's neck, and he was delivered basically deceased, and they revived him. And she said, I had the best doctors. I had high-risk doctors. I had nurses all around. I was strapped to 50 different devices, and yet he almost died. How'd that happen? So she studied it for months. And then, as she's nursing, and then she puts her money where her mouth is, and she's got I call it the baby belt. It's a device that wraps around the mother and constantly monitors through EKG and through, a sonar device and other, devices. I said, wow, my company, MedWatch, has developed a non-invasive way to monitor glucose. She said, oh my gosh, maybe we can like connect up and we can take your, I'm like, okay. So of course, 2 days later, I put her on the call with the CEO, Sam of MedWatch, and we're looking at collaborating. And she's like, I might want to invest in your company. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that just happened like naturally, Bart.
Yes.
Crazy.
And that's what I love about the universe. It's bringing people together, and with your expertise and your contacts and your financial acumen, you can help a mom bring this to market to be able to save lives in the future.
Yes.
I mean, that's just incredibly special. Can you share with our listeners a little bit more about Capital Fit? So yes, of course, the podcast, but what is your goal with Capital Fit? And then if you can tell us a little bit more about the guests that you're getting on the show.
Yes, it's 4 pillars. Capital Fit is 4 pillars. Number one, it is a capital advisory services for startups. So I help guide startups. They come to me at various levels of development, and I'll help them where I can. We negotiate, we figure out how, what skills that I have, what my huge network can bring to them. That's number one. Number two, I host events. So I host pitch events. I host VIP reception events with executives. I co-host them with various people here in town, like the one that is coming up June 6th in Scottsdale. I'll be bringing together speakers like yourself, doctors, medical professionals in the wellness space that are looking to make a difference. Not just talk, not just get research grants and spend millions and millions, but actually do something that's making a difference. That's where my heart is. Number three, it's wealth advisory, where folks will hire me to look at their overall investment strategy or their IRA plans, Roth IRAs, pension plans. And then lastly is legacy planning through the use of life insurance and figuring out, how we're going to transfer to our children in the most tax effective way, and what legacy do you want to leave for either charitable means using donor advised funds. I don't set up donor advised funds, but it's a great planning tool for folks that are looking at a foundation versus a donor advised fund versus just gifting it all away before they die. So I try to structure that, and I'm a quarterback to all that. 30 years doing this. I love to be the quarterback. I was a quarterback back in middle school and back in the day, and then lead striker on my soccer team for all through high school and college. So I've always been in the front of things and love to lead, and that's been my role.
Yeah, and as you had referenced before, you were saying you're called Hector the Connector. I mean, certainly, and what you're doing now is you are connecting people together. And I love what you said, for businesses that matter, right? That make a difference. It's not just it's for like-minded individuals that aren't just about the profitability. It's doing meaningful work, helping in a meaningful way, which again is just really very, very special and certainly very unique.
Thank you.
Your podcast.
Yep.
Yes.
Capital Fit.
And it's called Capital Fit. And you've had it, is it approximately 3 years now?
Yes, 3 years in May. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so how can individuals learn more about Capital Fit? Would it be on all channels?
All channels, yes. It's on my website, capitalfit.us. There's a link to all 100 plus podcasts. The hosts or the guests that I have, as I'm the host, the guests that I have are across the board in industries. But primarily the focus has been health. Dr. Rick Jacoby, a local top doc and an author of Sugar Crush and Unglued.
Yeah.
You talked about your cousin and the neurological issue he has of pure Parkinson's. It's in the book Unglued, Glued, using stem cells to unglue yourself from the effects of a lifetime of glucose and carbs and sugars, right? That have glycated our nerve endings to the point where we don't know who we are, or we can't feel our feet or our fingers, or we can't connect with each other because our hypoglossal nerve or our terminus nerve, that's his third book, the terminus nerve, which is a nerve behind your nose. It's the 13th cranial nerve. The guy's a genius. He does research. Some scientists in Europe came up with the 13th cranial nerve. The whole medical community said, nah, it's not really a nerve. It's the nerve that actually allows us to connect in through smell, and is much more powerful than we give it credit to. So that's, we talk about science and people are so brilliant, but they get siloed and they have bias to certain things and they're not open to certain things. Dr. Rick Jacoby has been probably my most influential teacher as a person in my entire life. I've learned so much. We podcasted together. We've been doing shows together back and forth, co-hosting on 2 other shows for years. His is Sugar Crush. And I've just learned a lot. And and so when I'm at, conference at an event that I was at last week where I'm talking, I'm like, are you a doctor? Because I'm talking, fairly competently about fairly complex issues. It relates to your nerves, to your feelings, to your gut microbiome, to stem cells. But our stem cells, amniotic fluid, Wharton's jelly, and it's like, are you? No, I'm not a doctor, but my mind has been open to receive all this information that I believe is truth. And don't talk about vaccines to people, because you're going to be like their best friend, or you're going to be an absolute enemy. And
yes. But you can certainly, I was just going to say, but you can certainly talk about food, right? And you can talk about gluten, and you can talk about sugar,
Yes.
And then, right, people are going to be able to understand. So I pulled it up just to make sure I get the spelling right for our listeners. Sugar Crush: How to Reduce Inflammation, Reverse Nerve Damage, and Reclaim Good Health, by Dr. Richard Jacoby, Jacoby.
Yes, sir.
Phenomenal. And has that helped you personally as well? Is that what you're applying for your own life?
It has, without a doubt. So when I'm with them, whether we're playing tennis or pickleball or having a dinner, and I go, to get something like, or I get an energy bar, I get a power bar. We're sitting there right before, changeovers over a tennis or pickleball. He's 83 years old, plays 2 hours of pickleball every day, and sometimes 2 hours of tennis with me. But he looks at the back of the package and says, okay, there's only, 3 grams of sugars, but there's added sugars and there's carbs. And he says, do the carbs, Dan. He's got a mathematical, calculation to see how many total sugars they're not reporting it right, Dan. And one energy bar is going to have 5 cubes of sugar that you're ingesting. And no wonder everyone's glucose levels are spiking.
Yes.
So he became an investor in MedWatch and referred me several of his colleagues, and has been a great supporter of the company and advisor to MedWatch. So he gets it. And, he was brought into Taiwan 1980. The Surgeon General of Taiwan got a hold of Rick. He was speaker globally, always on the cutting edge. He's a podiatrist, but he's way more than a podiatrist. He understands the nerve, but he called them into the country to teach them foot surgery, teach the surgeons within Taiwan foot surgeries and decompression surgeries and so forth. But what they wanted to find out was why the citizens of Taiwan were getting diabetes. What was the cause of diabetes, Rick? Rick didn't make that connection until really his book came out in 2015. This was 1980. And what it was fast food restaurants started showing up. U.S. fast food restaurants started showing up back in the 70s. And by the 80s, it had manifested into diabetes because they loved to eat that. They hadn't had it before. It was, restaurants everywhere, every corner. And that got them thinking.
Not hard to figure out that correlation, right?
Well, the correlation that sugar affects every nerve the same way in the body. And he called that the global compression theory. And that's the main tenet of his book, Sugar Crush, was Dr. The doctors in Stanford he was studying with said, oh, if you're so smart, Rick, you have this idea, then go figure it out. It took him 10 years to figure it out. He connected all the dots. And the sugar industry didn't like that because he was connecting dots. So he's a guy that to tell the truth, right? And he could have just kept amputating feet, but he said, hey, the Dr. Dellon, Johns Hopkins says, hey, there's a decompression method to decompress the nerve. I can decompress the nerve. And he looks at the nerve. Oh my gosh, it's like, no wonder it doesn't work. It's swelled up because of sugar, and the sheath around the nerve has compressed. He called it the double crush. He was going to call his book The Nerve of It, and have like a monster. Or he was going to call it Double Crush. It was a double crush. It's in the book. And it's the same double crush effect on the nerve by glucose on every nerve, from Parkinson's to diabetic neuropathy, carpal tunnel. It's all related. It's all
related. Wow.
The issue shows up, the carpal atherosclerosis, it's a nerve issue. Your heart attack was a nerve issue. And the nerve impulses were not firing properly. And that's probably low sodium, because they told you no sodium. They say, and then don't tell you about the sugar spikes, because you're really not monitoring your glucose spikes, but you're constantly in a spiking mode, and you're in a state of inflammation. So inflamed, sugar, the body can't, you're insulin resistant. So I've learned all this stuff. Like, you're a doctor? No, I'm not a doctor. I'm just somewhat informed. I've read his books. I've talked to him. We've met thousands of hours of conversation. And I feel like I can add value to people in conversations. And then we come up with regenerative medicine, which is this is the main subject of his book, Unglued, which is regenerative medicine. Technically, you can't use the word stem cells. It's mother's placenta. It's the umbilical cord. It's the fluid of the umbilical cord called Wharton's jelly that's used, and it's used. And Joanne Kurtzberg presented to the Senate in 2002, and in front of all the senators of a health subcommittee, and said, we have 30 doctors behind us. We've been studying this for years, and we know what regenerative medicine can do to turn back all these autism, ALS, MS, diabetic neuropathy. It works. And so he heard that from her. It was monumental. That was 24 years ago. And my senator from John McCain here was the head of that subcommittee. And it's controversial. That was 24 years ago. Why have they not studied it by now? So they spend billions on so much research every year.
Yeah. So, and I encourage our listeners, right, if this is of interest to you, look up the books, and please, probably most importantly, check out Capital Fit podcast. And Dan, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to read a little bit about your podcast. First of all, perfect scores, right? 5 out of 5. Capital Fit podcast, where you explore the fascinating intersection of sustainable investing, holistic health, and achieving a harmonious life balance. Right? Join you as you delve into the minds of visionary business owners, daring entrepreneurs, risk takers, and seasoned investment managers who unlock their true wealth by prioritizing their true health. Beautiful. About caring and authenticity and connecting people. Phenomenal. So I encourage all of our listeners, check out Capital Fit, where your favorite podcast can be seen and heard. Please, Capital Fit for the podcast with Daniel Barnard, Barnard. We will make sure that we include a link to your website, and then also any social media, a link to your podcast. Podcast host for Capital Fit. And is it Med Tech? Am I saying it correctly? Med Tech?
Yeah, med tech, it's health tech, it's
it's a bunch of great companies that are helping people create more meaningful lives by helping others. Is that fair?
Absolutely fair. Right. Great explanation.
Thank you enough for the time. The last question, and I promise you are an amazing person. Cannot wait to shake your hand in person. Thank you so much for what you do, for caring, for helping, for being real and authentic, for empowering people. So many great words. You set a great example for so many of us to be able to emulate, to try to get better, understand what you eat, exercise, be nice to people. It's not that hard. But Dan, here's the $1 million question. Most people don't. The name of the podcast. We started with you. What do you do that most people don't do? If you had to fill in the blank from a generalized perspective, most people don't blank. What would it be?
Oh, I would have to go back to most people don't follow through. My day yesterday, I had to fire somebody because it was a frustrating day. I had accumulated a lot of, potential work with this particular group, and they just weren't following through. And I get let down. I don't know how you deal with that. We could have a whole nother section, another podcast about how you deal with people who let you down, and when do you let them go? When do you let them run and give them a line to, forgive them for their shortcomings? But at what point do you just say, I'm done, you're just not in alignment with me? And so, yeah, I think it's just people not following through to what they say they're going to do. So do what you say and say what you do.
Yes, and it's not that difficult. And yes, I would like to continue the conversation about how we can advise people to actually follow up. And what does that look like? And how can they have systems? How can they use AI perhaps to even follow up? Because if it's important to the people that I work with, then it should be important to me. Otherwise, I'm in the wrong job, the wrong capacity, the wrong position. So yeah,
Yes.
really fascinating. Most people don't follow up, but I can tell you, Dan Barnard does. In fact, sending me notes just to make sure that we're ready before the call. You beat me to the punch. So you are a person that cares and you follow up. So appreciative, Dan. Thank you so much for being an incredible guest. Dan Barnard, Capital Fit Podcast, and more MedTech and other investments. Please follow him, learn more about him, listen to his podcast. And if you have a great business idea that is dealing with the intersection of med and technical, reach out to Dan. We'll make sure we have your contact details in the show notes. Outstanding. Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. Okay. Wow.